At the airport check-in counter, Vera smiled sweetly and said loudly, "This reservation is for blood family only." The agent paused mid-typing. My husband Caleb stood beside her like a statue. I felt heat rush up my neck as people in line stared. Vera added the final dagger with perfect precision. "She's just the wife." I swallowed the humiliation and asked Caleb quietly, "Are you letting her do this?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, frozen, while his mother took his passport from his hand like she owned him. I stepped back, shocked at how easily he surrendered. Then the agent frowned at her screen and said something that made my heart jump. "Ma'am, this trip isn't booked under your name." Vera's smile slipped for the first time since we'd arrived. Her perfectly painted lips tightened into a thin line. She turned slowly toward me, and I saw something dangerous flash in her eyes. The kind of look that promised consequences. Vera recovered instantly, laughing like the agent was simply confused. She demanded a manager with that calm, superior tone she used when dealing with people she considered beneath her. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Caleb finally spoke, but only to say, "Let's not do this here." Not "Stop, Mom," not "That's wrong," just "Don't embarrass her in public." The manager arrived, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, who had probably seen every kind of drama airports could offer. Vera leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear, but her tone was sharp. The manager scanned the booking confirmation, her eyes moving across the screen. Then she looked at me instead of Vera. "Ma'am, you're the primary on this reservation," she said clearly. I saw Vera's eyes narrow, and in that moment, I understood something important. She knew now that I had leverage. And Vera Hart did not like anyone having power she didn't control. I didn't go to the gate. I couldn't. I walked to a quiet corner near the restrooms and tried to breathe like my ribs weren't cracking. My hands shook as I pressed them against my thighs. Then, with a calm voice that didn't match my trembling fingers, I reminded myself of the truth. My name was Mallory Hart. I was 29 years old, and I had spent 5 years trying to be good enough for a woman who believed I was temporary. 5 years of perfect holiday dinners, respectful silences, and swallowing my opinions. Behind me, I heard Vera's heels clicking closer on the tile floor. She stopped just behind my shoulder and said softly, her voice wrapped in velvet poison, "You will not ruin this trip." She smiled, though I couldn't see her face. "Or you will regret it." Caleb stood several feet away, watching us but saying nothing, always watching, never intervening. Vera leaned closer, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume, and dropped a threat that made my stomach drop. Vera whispered, "I made you, I can unmake you." She said she could fix my marriage with one phone call. She told Caleb, not me, "If she comes, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." My husband flinched at those words, and I realized something terrible. That line had been used before. This wasn't new territory for him. Then Vera turned back to me, her voice switching to that sweet tone again. "Be a good girl and go home, Mallory." I looked at Caleb, really looked at him, and finally saw it clearly. He wasn't confused about whose side to take. He wasn't torn between us. He was trained to obey, trained to fear disappointing her, trained to sacrifice anything to keep his mother happy. The manager returned then, walking toward us with boarding documents in her hand. She held them out, and I saw my name printed clearly on the folder. Everything was addressed to me, not Vera, not Caleb, me. Vera reached for the papers first, but the manager pulled them back slightly. The manager handed me the packet politely, professionally. Vera reached for it again, faster this time. The manager stopped her with a quiet but firm, "Ma'am, these belong to the primary account holder." Vera's jaw tightened and I saw a muscle twitch near her temple. Everyone in line was watching now. The humiliation flipped in an instant, subtle but delicious, and I almost felt relief wash over me. But then Caleb's hand closed over my wrist, his grip gentle but insistent. "Mallory, please," he whispered, leaning close. "Not like this." I looked at him, confused at first, then understanding. He was asking me to surrender the documents. He wanted me to give in so Vera wouldn't be embarrassed in public, so she wouldn't be angry later, so he wouldn't have to deal with her rage. I pulled my arm away from his grip and asked the question I should have asked years ago. "Then tell me the truth, Caleb. Why are you really scared of her?" We sat in an airport lounge, away from the crowds and Vera's sharp ears. Caleb finally admitted she had planned this for months. The Bloodline vacation had rules, he explained, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Wives were invited only if Vera approved of them. Daughters-in-law had to earn their place through years of proper behavior. It was a family tradition, he said. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed, but he still defended it. I stared at him, genuinely stunned. "And you let her decide my place in your life?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead, a gesture I knew meant he was stressed. "You don't understand my mom, Mallory. She's always been like this. It's just easier if we don't fight her." My voice cracked as I spoke. "No, Caleb. You don't understand marriage." His phone buzzed then, cutting through the tension. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. He showed me the message, his hands actually shaking. It was from Vera, one word: choose. Caleb showed me the message again, like I might have misread it. His hands trembled as he held the phone. He admitted something then that made everything worse. Vera had threatened to cut him off before. Not just emotionally, though she'd done that plenty. Financially. I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding for 5 years. "Cut you off from what, Caleb?" He tried to dodge, looking away, changing the subject. I pressed harder. Then he confessed. Vera controlled an old family trust, money his grandfather had set up decades ago. Caleb was tied to it through conditions and rules I didn't fully understand. My stomach turned, not because of the money itself, but because of what it meant. Vera didn't raise a son. She raised an investment. She bought his obedience with every dollar. I looked down at the boarding packet in my lap and noticed something I'd missed before. My credit card was listed as the only payment method for the entire trip, not Vera's, not Caleb's. Mine. I stood up, my decision made. I walked to the counter with calm, steady steps. My voice was quiet but clear when I told the airline representative, "I need to remove my credit card authorization. I will not pay for any charges I'm not personally traveling for." It wasn't revenge, it was boundaries. The agent nodded and began typing. Vera stormed up mid-transaction, her composure cracking. "That card was meant for family expenses," she said sharply. I turned to face her, meeting her eyes directly for the first time that day. "I am family, Vera, unless you've trained everyone here to forget that." The words hung in the air. People nearby pretended not to listen, but clearly were. Vera's mask dropped completely. Her face twisted into something ugly, something she usually hid behind smiles and sweet tones. She leaned close and hissed, so only I could hear. "You're replaceable, Mallory. Don't ever forget that." The threat was clear. She'd done this before. She would do it again. I was just another woman who'd be erased from family photos eventually. Vera raised her voice, just enough for others to hear, playing to her audience. "She's a guest in our legacy, nothing more." People turned to stare. Caleb's face went pale. Vera finished her performance with precision. "I refuse to vacation with a woman who doesn't carry our name properly." I froze at those words. What did that mean? Caleb flinched beside me, and I knew. He knew exactly what she meant. The agent interrupted, saving me from having to respond. "Ma'am, without the cardholder's authorization, the reservation is locked. I can't process any changes." Vera's control evaporated in front of everyone. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She took a breath, composing herself with visible effort. Then she leaned in close to me one more time and said softly, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "Fine, then we'll do this the way we always do." I didn't understand the threat then. I would soon. We drove home in silence that evening, the vacation abandoned. Caleb was quiet, too quiet. We got home that night, and Caleb wouldn't look at me. I asked him what "the way we always do" meant. What was Vera planning? He said nothing, just paced our living room like a trapped animal. Then his phone rang. Vera's name lit up the screen. He answered on speaker without thinking, probably out of habit. Vera's voice filled our quiet house, calm and controlled again. "Pack your things, Caleb. Mallory won't be joining the family anymore." I felt my blood go cold. Not joining the vacation? Or not joining the family at all? Caleb whispered into the phone, "Mom, don't." His voice sounded small, childlike, defeated. "Don't what?" Vera asked sweetly. "Don't tell the truth? Don't protect our family? Don't fix your mistake?" She meant me. I was the mistake. Vera continued, "Come to my house. We need to discuss your future. Alone." Caleb looked at me, his eyes pleading for something I couldn't give. Understanding, maybe. Forgiveness. He nodded at the phone. Okay. I'll be there in an hour. Vera demanded Caleb come to her house immediately. He agreed without hesitation. I stopped him at the door, my hand on his arm. If you go, you're telling her she owns you. My voice shook, despite my effort to stay calm. He pulled away gently. I need to keep the peace, Mallory. You don't understand how she gets when she's angry. I whispered. Peace for who? He couldn't answer that. He just grabbed his keys and walked out, leaving me standing alone in our hallway. I heard his car start, then drive away. The house felt enormous and empty. My phone buzzed on the counter. An email notification. I opened it, expecting maybe something from work. Instead, I saw a message from an address I recognized. Vera's family lawyer. The subject line read, Important family matter. Immediate attention required. My hands shook as I opened it. The email was polite on the surface, professionally written, but the content was pure cruelty. It was a request that I sign an agreement. The document stated I wouldn't interfere with the Hart family legacy travel tradition. I read it twice, then laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. The email was absurd, but the message was crystal clear. Vera thought she could legally script my life. She actually believed she could send me papers that would control my behavior, my choices, my place in my own marriage. I forwarded the email to my best friend. Her name was Jamie, and she worked as a paralegal at a downtown firm. I typed, Is this normal? Can she actually do this? Can she actually do this? I stared at my phone, waiting. Jamie's response came faster than I expected. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then her message loaded. Mallory, call me now. This isn't about travel. My heart started pounding again. I dialed her number immediately. She answered on the first ring. Where are you? She asked, no greeting. Home. Caleb's at his mother's house. Jamie was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, Mallory, I need you to listen to me. These documents aren't vacation rules. They're legacy control forms. I didn't understand. What does that mean? Jamie sighed. It means Vera isn't just excluding you emotionally. She's doing it strategically. For money. I met Jamie at a quiet diner the next morning. She brought a folder with printed copies of the email and some research she'd done overnight. She explained something that made my skin crawl. These documents weren't about family trips. They were designed to establish family hierarchy for trust benefits. Meaning Vera wasn't just being cruel for cruelty's sake. She was positioning people legally. Deciding who was really family and who wasn't. Who deserved inheritance and who could be excluded. Jamie tapped the papers. This language here, it's setting you up as an outsider. If you sign this, you're agreeing you're not really part of the family structure. My throat felt tight. But I'm married to her son. Jamie nodded. Which is why this is so calculated. She's trying to get you to legally separate yourself from family benefits before Caleb even realizes what's happening. I thought about Caleb's silence, his obedience, his fear. He already knows, I whispered. Jamie's expression turned sympathetic. Then you need to check something. Your marriage paperwork. Now. I went home and opened our safe. My hands shook as I pulled out our marriage file. I found our wedding license, the certificate, and all the paperwork from 5 years ago. But something was missing. My throat tightened as I searched. My surname change paperwork was never filed. Caleb had promised he would handle it after the wedding. I'd been busy with work, trusting him to take care of the legal details. Vera had been calling me, not properly family, for years. I thought she was just being difficult, traditional, snobby, but now I understood. On paper, legally, I had never become a Hart. I never changed my name. My hands trembled as I kept searching through the folder. Then I found it. A small sticky note, yellowed with age, stuck to the back of an envelope. The handwriting was Caleb's. 3 words that shattered everything. Mom said wait. I sat on our bedroom floor, the papers scattered around me, and felt something break inside my chest. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't forgotten paperwork. Someone had deliberately stopped it, and Caleb had let it happen. Caleb came home late that night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the sticky note in front of me. He walked in, saw my face, and stopped. What's wrong? He asked, but his voice told me he already knew. I held up the note. His face went pale. He stared at it, silent for what felt like forever. Then he admitted the truth. Vera had convinced him not to file the name change paperwork. She'd said it was temporary, just until things settled. Until she was sure I was the right fit for the family. Until she approved of me completely. He said, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to upset her, Mallory. She was already so stressed about the wedding. My voice shook when I spoke. You made me temporary in my own marriage. He reached for me, trying to explain, trying to make excuses. I stepped back, away from his hands. 5 years, Caleb. 5 years you let me believe I was your wife, completely legally. But I wasn't. Not on paper, not in your mother's eyes, and you knew. His phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Vera. She found it, didn't she? Vera called me directly that night. I answered, forcing myself to stay calm. She said, You're smart, Mallory. I'll give you that. Then without any pretense, but you're still not one of us. You never will be. I asked the question I'd wondered for 5 years. Why do you hate me? Vera laughed, a cold, elegant sound. I don't hate you. That would require caring about you. You're just irrelevant. Caleb was listening, standing across the room, his face horror-struck. Vera continued, her voice casual like we were discussing the weather. A wife is an accessory, dear. If you break, we replace you. Caleb understands that. I felt something sharp and hot in my chest. I looked at my husband and whispered, loud enough for Vera to hear through the phone, If you stay silent after this call, Caleb, I'm done. Completely done. In the air. Vera went quiet, waiting to see what her son would do. Caleb's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then he finally spoke, his voice rough. Stop talking about her like that, Mom. Caleb snapped for the first time in our entire marriage. Stop talking about her like that. Vera paused on the other end of the line, genuinely surprised. I could hear it in her silence. Then she used her favorite weapon, the one that always worked. Guilt. After everything I've done for you? Her voice trembled with manufactured hurt. After I raised you, supported you, gave you everything? Caleb's voice shook, but he kept going. You've done things to me, Mom. Not for me, to me. Silence stretched out, then Vera's tone turned icy, dangerous. You think you can defy me and keep your inheritance, the lake house, the trust fund, everything your grandfather left? Caleb froze. I watched the color drain from his face. I realized then, fully, what had been happening all these years. She'd been buying his obedience. Every benefit, every gift, every dollar came with strings attached. And those strings were wrapped around his throat, choking him slowly. He'd never been free, not as a child, not as an adult, never. Caleb hung up the phone and confessed everything. He was terrified of Vera because she controlled a family trust that covered so much. Property taxes on the lake estate his family owned, medical expenses for his grandmother, insurance for family properties. He'd thought protecting the peace, keeping Vera happy, was the same as protecting us, protecting our future. He'd been so wrong. I told him, my voice steady despite the pain, You didn't protect us, Caleb. You offered me up as a sacrifice. Real tears fell down his face then. Actual crying, the first I'd seen in our 5 years together. He'd always been so controlled, so careful with his emotions. Vera had taught him that. Men don't cry. Men don't show weakness. Men obey their mothers and lead their wives. But he was breaking now. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Before I could respond, our doorbell rang. Caleb looked at me, confused. We weren't expecting anyone. I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. Vera stood on our porch, her car parked in our driveway. She'd come uninvited. Vera walked into my home like she owned the air we breathed. She sat on my couch without being asked and smiled that perfect cold smile. I'm here to resolve this, she announced like she was doing us a favor. She slid papers across our coffee table. A post-nuptial agreement. She wanted me to sign away certain rights for family harmony. Caleb looked sick, his face gray. Vera turned to me, her voice sweet poison. Sign it, Mallory, or you'll never be invited to another family event again. No holidays, no birthdays, no graduations. You'll be erased. I picked up the papers with shaking hands and read them. My eyes caught on one particular line that made my stomach flip. The agreement stripped me of any spousal claim if Caleb inherited from the family trust. Meaning if Vera died, if the lake house passed to Caleb, if any family money came his way, I would have no legal right to any of it. Even as his wife, she was trying to make me legally invisible. Caleb whispered, Mom, you can't ask her to sign that. Vera's smile widened. I'm not asking. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her papers back at her. I simply said, no. Vera blinked, and I saw genuine shock cross her face. Like she hadn't heard that word in decades. Maybe she hadn't. Everyone in her life had always bent to her will. Caleb, his father, family members, even me, until now. Then she turned to Caleb with a voice like ice. Pack a bag. You're staying with me until your wife learns proper respect. It was a test, a power play. She wanted to see if he would obey. If he would choose her again, like he always had. Caleb stood slowly from his chair. I watched him, my heart breaking, waiting for him to gather his things. Waiting for him to leave me alone in our house while he ran back to her. But he didn't move toward our bedroom. He stood there, between us, and said the sentence that changed everything. Mom, you don't get to take me anymore. Vera's face transformed. The mask dropped completely. I saw pure rage beneath it. Vera laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just sharp edges. Take you? I made you, Caleb. Everything you are is because of me. Caleb answered, his voice low but steady. You controlled me. There's a difference. Vera's smile turned vicious. This time she didn't hide her beliefs, didn't soften her words. Men lead, women follow. She made you weak. I stepped forward then, finding my own voice. No, Vera, she made you obedient. There's a difference. Vera's eyes flashed with something dangerous. She pointed directly at me, her finger like a weapon. You're nothing without our name, without our family. Nothing. I felt Caleb tense beside me, but I responded before he could. My voice was quiet, calm, certain. Then watch me walk away with mine. The words landed like stones. Vera stood frozen, processing what I just said. She'd expected me to crumble, to beg, to sign her papers just to keep some scrap of approval. But I was done begging, done shrinking, done pretending her cruelty was love. I walked to our bedroom and started packing a bag. Not to run away forever, but to reclaim my dignity. I wouldn't sleep under the same roof as Vera's threats. Caleb panicked, following me. Don't leave, Mallory. Please. I kept folding clothes, my movements calm and deliberate. I won't stay married to your mother, I told him. I married you. But if you can't separate from her, then we don't have a marriage. He begged. Actually begged. Vera stood in the hallway watching, and I saw her smirk. She thought she was winning. She thought I was leaving Caleb, that she'd successfully driven us apart, that she would get her son back completely. I turned to her then and said clearly, you can keep the Bloodline vacation, Vera. You can keep your legacy trips and your family trust and your control. But you won't keep my silence. Vera's smirk faded, her face went pale. Because she finally realized something important. I had receipts. Legal ones, emails, text messages, sticky notes, documentation of everything. And I wasn't afraid to use them. I sat with a family counselor the next day. Caleb had agreed to come, desperate to save our marriage. Vera showed up too, uninvited but confident. She probably expected the counselor to take her side, to tell me I was being unreasonable. But this counselor specialized in family systems and manipulation. I'd chosen carefully. The counselor reviewed documents I'd brought. The surname change delay. The legal intimidation email. The postnup ambush. Vera tried to spin each one, explaining her intentions, making excuses. But the counselor saw through it all. She said one line that cracked Vera's carefully constructed image. You're not protecting family, Mrs. Hart. You're controlling it. Vera sputtered, tried to argue. The counselor continued calmly. Healthy families have boundaries. They allow grown children to build their own lives. What you're describing is enmeshment and financial manipulation. Caleb sat very still, listening. Then he spoke, his voice stronger than I'd heard in years. I choose my wife. Vera turned to him, her eyes burning. She whispered, low and vicious, then you're dead to me. Vera tried her last desperate move. She left our house and immediately called the trust manager, demanding they cut Caleb off from all family funds. She expected begging. Expected him to come crawling back, apologizing, bringing me along to sign whatever papers she wanted. But Caleb had already taken a healthy legal step. He'd met with an independent financial advisor weeks earlier, quietly, with my support. He'd arranged a new plan, signed paperwork that gave him access to his own accounts, separate from Vera's control. When Vera called the trust manager, she learned Caleb had voluntarily relinquished his beneficiary status. He'd sent a calm, professional letter stating he would not accept benefits until the terms were corrected to respect his marriage. Meaning her power was gone. She couldn't threaten him anymore. Couldn't buy his obedience. Couldn't wave the lake house or the trust fund over his head. Vera collapsed emotionally right there on the phone. Not because she loved him and was losing him, but because the money was never the point. Control was. And she just lost it completely. She stormed out of our house that night, expecting Caleb to follow. No one did. Months later, I stood on a porch that belonged to Caleb and me. Not Vera's house. Not begging for entry into her world. Our home. We'd rebuilt our marriage slowly, painfully, honestly. Therapy sessions every week. Hard conversations. Real boundaries. We filed the name change paperwork properly this time. I became Mallory Hart legally, by choice, on my terms. We took our own vacation that summer. No bloodline requirements. No gatekeeper deciding who was worthy. Just us. When Caleb got an email invitation from Vera about the next legacy trip, he deleted it without opening it. He looked at me and said simply, "I finally know what family is." I smiled. Not triumphant, not cruel, just free. Vera had wanted to teach me I wasn't family, that I didn't belong, that I could be erased. Instead, I taught her a truth she'd never learned. Family isn't bloodline. Family isn't control or money or manipulation. It's loyalty, it's choice. It's showing up when things are hard. And she never earned mine. She never even tried.